Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 28th of January, and time for the fourth edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis of the year 2026. I'm Brian Walton, and this is my partner, Kyle Reis. We come to you each week in video form at thecardinalnation.com and in video and audio form through all the various podcast apps that are out there. Kyle, welcome.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me again. I'm excited to talk over what is a relatively busy week with you.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. It was down in one way in that we haven't seen the trades that everybody's waiting for. But the week started off with a big bang. But before we get into the news, I want to talk about just one thing right up front because these podcasts are free, but as you know, nothing's free. Our time's not free. Kyle and I spent a lot of time on the 2026 Cardinal Nation Prospect Guide, which is now available for purchase same day delivery via PDF. And the hard copy books are at the printer. So I would say in the next week to 10 days or so, they will be shipping, and we're taking orders now so that if you want a book, a hard copy spiral bound book, 275 pages, it will go out to you at that time. There's four sections in the book, and the first section is covering the 2025 season in the minor league system, stats leaders, player leaders, a lot of information about awards, honors, anything you'd want to know about what happened last year. Then we look at the past history and we dice and slice the prospect list by ages, by levels, by skills, by future. And then, of course, the core of the book are 50, which is really 52 prospects in our top list this year. Detailed scouting reports by Kyle that are excellent. They go into the strengths and weaknesses of the various pitchers and position players, what they need to do to achieve their ultimate goal, which is, of course, to become a productive major leaguer. And then I follow up with a discussion of their background, where they've been, and a little bit of where they are in the competitive nature, because let's face it, everybody's competing against one another to get to the top of that pyramid. And then where their ultimate potential may be and at what time they might be able to achieve that. And that's done over and over again for 52 players. And then at the end, Kyle highlighted another dozen players that didn't make his top 50 or didn't make our joint top 50, but are ones that we were interested in. And then out of those, we picked our sleeper picks of the year, which is also a lot of fun. And then the final section is a history section where going to all of our past prospect lists over time for like the last 20 years. And because we had prospects lists even before they're in a book. This is only the ninth year of the book, but been doing prospect lists here at the Cardinal Nation for at least 20 years. Actually, probably more than that. But anyway, history, past award winners, all the people in the player development organization, what their assignments are, detailed histories of the international program since it started, which guys were signed each year, how much, what positions, where did they end up, and the same kind of detail for the last dozen or so drafts. Who was drafted, what round, what did they sign for, where did they end up? So tons and tons of information, and some nice pictures in there too of some of the players in action. So a lot in the 2026 Cardinal Nation Prospect Guide. As I said, it's available both in the PDF form, which Kyle has in his possession, as do those who've ordered it already. And then, as I said, a spiral bound printed book version that's available as well. And if you're a subscriber to the Cardinal Nation, you can purchase the PDF at half price. And this is a time, money's tight for everybody right now, let's face it. And if you're already a subscriber to the Cardinal Nation, you can get the PDF for $12.95. It's a great bargain. If you're like me, you're old school, you're going to want to flip through the pages. But the PDF is a good way to get started and for you to see the quality and the depth of what's in the prospect guide. That's the end of my commercial, but I'll let Kyle now speak.
The only thing I want to say, Brian, is when I got my hands on that PDF earlier in the week, I just it's just such a useful tool for the entire year. I think about a lot of these guys who we don't know is going to make a major league debut, that we can't anticipate making a major league debut, and how some of those guys might be covered and how valuable of a tool the prospect handbook's going to be. Looking back, it's fun to see what was Victor Scott rated in 2023, and it's right there in a graph. And it's an easy to read graph, and
You can see the rankings of every prospect over time. I've color coded them so you can see they're red, green, yellow. So, if Scott went up and then he went down a year, then went back up. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and then you talk about prospects that have been passed up, and it's a great snapshot what this offseason is for the St. Louis Cardinals and what the future will be, especially in 2027 and beyond, in the relatively recent or soon to be beyond for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I just, it's such a privilege and such an honor to be a part of this, to be asked to take part in it, and then to see it and to see that what I did was just a small fraction of the work that was put in, and to see it beautifully illustrated, but the colors are vibrant. It is a work of art. It really is, Brian. And it's just so cool that something like this exists, and there's nothing else like this. The Cardinals yearbook is an awesome tool. It's not like this. This is another level. It's the Cardinals yearbook for prospects, but also for players that are currently playing in the major league level. There's nothing else like it on the book stand.
And it's something that I've done. Like I said, this is the ninth year, and I think I've gotten good feedback from subscribers, buyers, the book about what parts they like, what they don't. So I've added a little more here, taken away a little bit there, and I'm always interested in feedback for those who do purchase it, by the way, on how we can make it better next year. Because God willing, there will be a next year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you will have, if anything, all we'll have next year is prospects. So one way or the other. Yeah. And
All right.
hey, hold off your criticism. You're not going to get rid of me that easy. So don't say, Brian, my one criticism is Kyle's got to go. Too bad. Although maybe not. We'll see.
All right. So let's get into the news from this past week. The news that probably hit the quickest right after we published our last edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis was the news that Yadier Molina has returned to the St. Louis Cardinals as a special assistant to the president of baseball operations. I do this for a living, and I honestly didn't know that Yadi wasn't already a special assistant, but I lost track that somehow he and Mr. Mozeliak had a falling out or something happened that Yadi spent more time on his basketball team or his high school son or whatever it is that Yadi spends his time on these days, managing in the winter leagues. What was your take when you saw the announcement that Yadier Molina is officially in the Cardinals organization again?
I thought third time, fourth time's a charm, Brian. I thought why not keep doing it and see if maybe he answers the call every once in a while. I think my next thought after the cynicism that came with my initial thought was I really can't wait to see if he's around more often than he was last year. We started seeing him around more often last year. He was in the dugout and blah blah blah. I know it's a little different than special assistant to the
At least
G.
twice.
Yeah, yeah. So I know it's a little different than the special assistant to the GM, but yeah, that was, I guess that was my second thought. And then honestly, it's not fair to Yadier Molina, but my third thought was all that I've heard about over the last year and a half are the strides that Mr. Goforth, the catching instructor, and some of the instructors at the minor league
Catching
level,
coordinator. We're talking about
coordinator.
Chris Goforth, the catching coordinator, who's been now on his job for a year, and I think he's picked up base running. I believe is in his duties now for 20. I haven't talked to him yet, but I will soon. But I think he's added that to his base. But he's gotten very good, as you say. Chris Goforth's gotten very good remarks for the catchers, and of course we know the catching position is one of wealth in the organization. You just hope that what Chris Goforth and Yadier Molina preach are similar.
Yeah, yeah. So let's. I guess it's Ethan Goforth, not to. Because
Sorry, yeah, I said Chris. Who's Chris Goforth? There's somebody in Chris Goforth out there.
I will make a character. You know what? I'll write a fake prospect write up of Chris Goforth, and
There you go.
no, but I I think what I'm trying to get at is when you talk to the players, you hear a lot about like the progress they've made under Goforth and Co. And I don't want to see that change. We talk a lot about how sometimes it's easier to be the greatest player at your position than it is to teach people to be good at their position. And Yadi's an abrasive personality, and a lot of times, you know, it's he's a great teacher, a great mentor, but he's not always easy to work with or work for. And I don't know. I guess I'm just saying that like I like how things are going, and I don't want to see that change in catcher development unless he can really add something and bring something that isn't just the cachet of being the best catcher of my lifetime defensively.
So I got to say something. Chris Goforth is one of our subscribers at the Cardinal Nation.
Yes.
That's that's why I had the name. Sorry, Ethan. Nothing against you personally, but you're on a great point, and that is what is Yadier Molina's role really going to be? Because of course, when they do these special assistant things, they're always kind of worded kind of vaguely. Last time around, it was about Molina learning how the front office works and understanding that side of the business. This time, it was a little more flavor to helping catchers. I think that there's one obvious motive, that is keep Yadi in the organization so somebody else doesn't hire him. But and this is going to be a big year for Molina. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the other is, if Yadier Molina is going to be a future manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, and that's the elephant in the room, right? Everybody knows that. Is he the going to be the next guy? He's got to know how the front office works. He's got to figure out how to better handle the people side of the job, because we know Yadier Molina knows the game. But being a great player doesn't necessarily mean you're a great manager with the many demands that a major league manager that are coming from all these different directions. And so I think if Molina is going to be serious about wanting to manage the major leagues, he's got to strengthen the other parts of his game other than leading players and helping players be better, which is a huge part of the job, but it's not the only part of the job.
Yeah, Brian, what a great point. And then that something I hadn't even really considered until you brought that up. This organization is like it's not insular exactly just yet, but what it's become is like megamind. It is one voice operating many voices. It's not like Mo where he was just it was him speaking and he was a message. Like we talked about it last week. You talked to Mr. Serfolio, you talked to Mr. Day, you talked to Mr. Bloom, and all three of them are saying the same thing. They're giving the same message, but it's loud and they're all steering towards a direction. We talked about it last week about how they're talking about maybe going too fast and needing to pull the reins back so that everybody can catch up. Well, it gives the Cardinals not only Molina, but it gives the Cardinals a chance to feel out what Mr. Molina is willing to be open to from a managerial role, or even in the direction that the Cardinals are going, which is progressive in a lot of ways.
Let's face it, a guy like Tony La Russa, strong personality, a lot of confidence in what he does, which he, by the way, earned over 3 decades. But a guy like that, they have to earn that over years and years and years, and that's not the world we're in today. You can't come in and just bowl. I mean, then you have philosophical differences and you end up working elsewhere.
Well said, Brian. Yeah, I'm just anxious to. I guess really, I'm just anxious to see how often we see Yachty, and if he's because if he's in Springfield, if he's in Memphis, they're going to put it on the Cardinals player development Twitter account. They're going to want people to see it out there. I guess right away, I just want to see if he's in spring training and how often and what that even looks like.
So I wrote an article the other day about Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols because I was coming off the Cardinals Hall of Fame meeting that we had after winter warm-up in St. Louis. And it was that, as folks probably know, since the Cardinals Hall of Fame was created in 2014, there had been two modern era players, two players in the last 30 years that get selected on the fan ballot from a group of 6, 8, however many are on the ballot that year. But then it got to the point where the pool was starting to narrow down and a lot of the deserving guys were recognized. So they dialed it back to 1 per year, which I think they should have done a few years before they did, but they did. And now it's new candidates coming on the ballot. Players have to be retired from professional baseball for at least 3 years. Now, the National Baseball Hall of Fame is 5 years. So 3 years, this year, Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols come up. And so I did a quick article on the hypothetical, if they were only going to let one guy in this year, who would you pick? Would you pick the guy who's arguably one of the greatest players of all time, but also left in the prime of his career, or do you keep the loyal soldier who played for 19 years and changed games the way that he handled his job behind the plate? So it's a fun one, and the reality is you're not going to have to decide. They're going to go through the formality of the voting process because they need to do that, but we're going to see Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols don their red jackets later this summer at Busch Stadium. So that's going to be something exciting to look forward to. And it's nice that Yadier, even though Albert Pujols obviously is an employee of the Los Angeles Angels at this point, I don't think there would be anything that would keep Albert Pujols from that special day that he and Yadier are probably going to share, along with maybe one or two others later this summer.
It's a compelling argument, a well-written article too. Fascinating.
Yeah, it was fun. And I obviously couldn't provide a lot of information about what's going to happen. Some of it because I don't know. The ballots are going to be announced sometime during spring training in the next month or so. And then, folks will be able to vote, and the voting will end up, being disclosed around the April timeframe. They don't usually say the amount of votes that they get each. So it'll be fun to see behind the scenes, who out-balloted who.
I got to know. I can't wait for it.
Another thing that's on the Cardinal Nation, as long as we're doing commercials today, you mentioned the organization speaking with one voice. I didn't feel like I got enough information at winter warm-up about what was happening with the international program. So I got Moises Rodriguez to give me about, I don't know, 40 minutes of his time or so, in which case I could ask him not only about the 12 international signees that the Cardinals announced on January 15th, some of the highlights of those guys, but also which guys are thinking about bringing over to the U.S. here for spring training, and what they're doing in the scouting side internationally, because they're pumping more resources in there as well. And we talked even about crazy things like the international draft, and so it's a very, very good interview. And Moises was not only very gracious with his time, but again, consistent with the organization. I think he shot very straight with the questions, didn't try to evade or avoid some of the uh, the the questions about their strategy. He had some disclosed some very interesting things too about how they're looking at players differently now than they used to look at. So worth your time to definitely check out.
I love it, Brian. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you about that? Was there like one little bit of knowledge, or other than the unified voice?
Well, I think he used an example of Rainiel Rodriguez, who is a player that is shot up the prospect. In fact, that's the next thing we should talk about, I guess. Shot up the national prospect list after his tremendous year across three levels last year. And when Rainiel Rodriguez was being scouted, there were concerns, and I was concerned about his size, but it wasn't. The concerns weren't really about his size. The concerns were, is the guy going to have a defensive home? And in the old days, Moises goes, we might not have drafted this guy, but they looked at his tools and specifically his power tool and said, hey, if this guy can hit for power, we'll find a place for him. Let's sign this guy. Let's make sure we get this guy in house. And I thought it was very telling that there may be, in the case of power for hitters, there may be one tool that stands above the others in terms of their grading and analysis of prospects, which I thought was, maybe that's not revolutionary, but it's something that definitely caught my attention.
Well, Brian, that's such a great thing to stick out. And I will also say that is the guy who spent a lot of time. I'm not going to call it whining because we're trying to get people to buy it, but who spent a lot of time in the prospect analysts side of it, mentioning that I have an issue with prospects that haven't made it stateside that don't hit for power. It's incredibly self-serving to my ego. So I'm glad that stood out to you. Let's roll.
I think they probably listened to your feedback and altered the organizational strategy accordingly.
Yeah, you know what, Brian? That makes way more sense. Absolutely, you're right.
All right. So since we touched on the edges of it, this is prospect time of the year. Typically, what happens is organizations, when I talk about organizations here, I'm not talking about Major League Baseball organizations. I'm talking about national prospect analyzing entities, or as Randy Flores loves to disdainfully call third party analyses, um, third party organizations. I'm talking about baseball now, Baseball America, ESPN, MLB.com, The Athletics, Fangraphs, etc. These guys typically come out with their national top 100 prospect list first. So that's the best 100 prospects, obviously, in baseball, regardless of organization. Then they drill down into the teams and show their team top tens. So by organization, top 10 Cardinals. And then finally, they rank all the organizations kind of once they have everything all laid out. And so I think maybe now we're to four or five top 100s that are out there. And the Cardinals generally have four guys. On a couple lists, they've had five. On one list, they've only had three. But if you do the simple math, and this is basic dummy math, there's 100 prospects. Every organization should have at least three or three plus. So, the Cardinals have five. That's a good representation. Interestingly enough, only one of them is a pitcher, and that's Liam Doyle. And you would expect Liam Doyle to be on national top 100s at this point. But Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, who have been on the list before, have slipped off because of their injuries and challenges. But there's four hitters that are on the list and two that are on every list. And that's, of course, J.J. Weatherholt and Rainiel Rodriguez, who we just talked about. But then Leonardo Bernal has made a couple lists near the end. And Joshua Baez has made a very, very strong showing. That may be the most surprising thing to me. I mean, he almost made the top 50 on Baseball America's list.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see the industry react to Joshua Baez. I think towards the end of the year there was with both Baez and Rainiel, there was like an undercurrent of support growing in the scouting, the third party community, we'll say. And Rainiel, because he's so young and he has so much power, it really came through. And everybody, it's easy to jump on that bandwagon of a 19-year-old who can hit for power and pull side and everything with huge exit velocities.
He's
And
on
it's
the
been,
top. He's in the top 50 of every list that's come out so far. So he's
yeah,
not. I mean, in a lot of cases, he's the number two prospect in the system according to these rankings. Now, whereas when Kyle and I did our list, we had him third after Doyle.
yeah, yeah. So it's easy to see why he would find his way onto nearly every top 50. But with Baez, it's fun to like see the industry. And this is where we talk about a lot, Brian, about how like don't just take one list, take all of the lists, and that'll give you kind of an idea, including ours, including not third party, but like local writers, like our good friend Kareem, Kareem SSN when he puts out his list. Like take those and then compare them to national lists and taking all that information as an aggregate. And Brian, you do that too. You'll end up aggregating that on your site. Um, but it's been fascinating with Baez because I think a lot of people in the scouting community, the third party scouting community, are still like trying to figure out what 2025 is for him after being incredibly aggressive with him coming out of the draft.
And back to the discussion we had when we went through it, he was firmly in your top
Yeah,
10. I'm saying I'm not ready yet. I want to see it. I want to see it a second time. I want to see two data points, not just one.
smart. And that's probably the way to be. And uh, we've seen that a lot. Like I think in some capacity I brought up Moises Gomez. It might have been with him or somebody else, but like I think about Moises Gomez, right? He had all of these tools. Now, Moises Gomez, when you break it down, he did not have the swing decisions in zone or out of the zone to be sustainable. We just didn't know that at the time because the data wasn't available to us. Where Baez, and part of the reason why he's on some of the list, has shown in the last year, in 2025, that he's made that change. But it's all just to say that when you talk about big power and big swing, and one of my favorite things about Joshua Baez at the plate is how hard he swings, you can easily see a regression coming in. So the two data points are incredibly important. And the fact that he's on some list and not on some list, I think is the perfect example of taking all the lists in aggregate. I think it's really important. I think it's a fascinating thing to see how he ranks on lists and doesn't rank on lists.
Yeah. So you'll need to, some of these lists are free. Some of these lists are, behind paywalls, but, again, it's very encouraging to see that we know the Cardinals need offense. They need pitching as well, but the pitching is a little behind the offense right now. And, we don't want to gloss over the fact that JJ Weatherholt's in everybody's top 10. He won't be on this list next year at this time, most certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny, right? Where it's like we've all kind of resigned ourselves to JJ being what JJ is. I think about, and I again, I hadn't really thought about it until right now because we didn't even talk about him. It's like, yeah, JJ, Cardinals starting third baseman or second baseman or shortstop or outfielder. Who really knows? Starting catcher, starting third in the rotation. Uh, but yeah, it's like I think we've all kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that he's not even really a prospect in this stage of the Cardinals build, Brian. It's a build, don't forget. So yeah, and that should speak highly about how everybody thinks about him. He's just a man.
And his comments out of winter warm up I think are great. The thing that stuck with me is, hey, I'm not going to listen to the noise, right? I'm not going to listen to the praise. I'm not going to listen to all the adulation. I'm going to go out there and play ball, which is exactly what you want to hear. Because
Yeah,
there's going to be all kinds of people saying, "Hey, you're going to be the rookie of the year. You're going to be the next Cam Musial. You're going to be whatever." And it's like, no, I'm just going to be myself and see how it goes.
yeah, that was a fun anecdote, right? Where he said that the hashtag poison, dating back to his days in West Virginia, that's what they would call it, the noise from social media and whatnot. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying my hardest not to pump him up. I'm trying to be as realistic for the audience as possible, but the reason that I mean, he could have been a lesser athlete with lesser skills and lesser talent, and he still would have been a top 10 pick in that draft because of his intangibles. You talk to people in other organizations, you talk to people in the third party scouting industry, and they tell you that he was worth a top five pick and being in consideration for top one based on his intangibles alone. He just has all of that. It's all there. His work ethic, his mind, and he's personable, and it really comes through. Like he understands his assignment, and that's rare, and it's a hard thing to quantify. And even just saying like he understands his assignment, I don't necessarily know. Like I feel like I need to write about that to kind of what I mean, but like he just gets it, and not everybody gets
Sometimes I get it, but not the way he gets it.
it.
So, so as long as we're on this subject of JJ Weatherholt, you're going to have a scoop here, and it's not a scoop, it's a prediction, but it's one that if I could go to, and you can bet on anything you want at FanDuel. You can't bet on this yet, at least as far as I know. But the Cardinals announced their 27 non-roster invitees to spring camp. And because I have piles of spreadsheets and love to do rows and columns and look at numbers, I dissect the roster by uniform number. And I look at guys whose uniform numbers change from year to year. Now, not everybody's going to care about this, but I'm going to write about it. You'll see it posted in the next few days. And I look at guys, and I also, of course, look at guys who are in camp for the first time. There's 28 guys who are going to be in Major League camp for the first time. And by the way, yeah, I look at their numbers, but then I also look at the people who left and why they left. I look at people who came in. Where did they come from? Did they come from trade, free agency, Rule 5? How did they come? So there is some data, some interesting stuff that you can pull away from it, which I will put in words for those who maybe won't pull it from the tables. But where I was going with JJ is that I look at the numbers that are being used this spring, and I look at the numbers that aren't being used this spring. Well, JJ was like 87 last year, or 85, or 87. This year now he's 77. Okay, obviously that's not the number that he's going to end up with. Well, guess what number is available right now that I predict on opening day JJ Weatherholt will be wearing for the St. Louis Cardinals? That is the number 7 that Andrew Kisner last wore in 2023. Nobody's worn that number since, and I predict that that's what JJ is going to wear for his career. You heard it?
Sounds about right to me, Brian. Sounds about right to me. What an incredible amount of sleuthing you did there. Now I get why everybody calls you Rosen Columns. That's just you're Brian Rosen
Rosen. What? There's some other cool uniform number stuff. Dustin May's wearing 3, which is not a normal pitcher number, but he, for whatever odd reason, had worn 85 his entire career, and that's retired due to for Mr. Bush. They've also not given out Yadier and Albert's numbers as you would expect, but also Adam Wainwright and Willie McGee. So those are 4 numbers, 4, 5, 50, and 51 numbers that haven't been given out and probably won't. I don't think McGee's number is going to get retired probably by the Cardinals, but as long as he's in the employ of the team, certainly they probably won't give it to anybody else.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And you're right on it. Brian, I had to look it up while you were talking. I thought he wore 20. JJ Weatherholt wore 27 at West Virginia.
Oh.
Is anybody wearing 27? Who's 27?
Nathan Church.
Who? That's not a real person. No.
I'm sorry. Nathan Church is number 27 this spring.
Well, no wonder they're not taking his role on the 26-man seriously. They're just going to cut him, and this Weatherholt can have 27. It makes sense now.
No. I think they want him to be a single number guy up there on the wall, up on the outfield wall someday.
Yeah, you're 100% correct about that. And there is a 7 in there. And I do know for a fact that that's a number of importance to him, I believe. So anyways, you're right on it. I thought it was 27 though. And I feel that that's a good thing. So yeah, Brian, I think you're onto it. Of course, the big news in the numbers is that the Cardinals have unretired all of their retired numbers so that Packy Naughton gets to choose whatever number he wants. He can wear 1, he can wear 20, 45, I heard.
Packy Naughton is going to wear the 71 last worn by Wade Stouse last season. 71 has it doesn't have a history at all, really.
That is minor league coach Wade Stouse to you, Brian.
That's absolutely true, and God bless him. He's made that transition. The organization obviously like what he brings to the table. And Packy Naughton's back. Packy Naughton hadn't been in camp, for a couple of years because he hurt his arm, and he's now healthy supposedly. And we'll see. The Cardinals need help on the left side. It's not crazy if he pitches well that he can earn his way back onto the roster and make the team. There are bullpen jobs to be had. Who are some of the other guys that you were excited to see? I saw Austin Love made it. He was a guy that Kyle will say, I was on him first, and you're right. There's some others as well.
I started laughing when I saw Austin Love because that's basically it's made me think of our podcast really. So Brian, the whole left-handed pitching non-roster invitee list is wild when you think about it. Like Zach Thompson, Packy Naughton.
Zach Thompson, by the way, is still listed as injured.
Yeah. Well, aren't we all, Brian? Aren't we all?
Yeah. Well, some more than others. I think in that case, and Sam Robertsay is in the same situation.
So that stuck out to me. We knew about Jared Schuster and Bruce Zimmerman. Those are some of the things that stuck out to me. And then, of course, the other thing that stuck out to me, Brian, is the Cardinals. Just as we joked around, the Cardinals have solved their right-handed outfield issue with the signing of Nelson Velazquez as their right-handed hitting option.
Hey, the guy has power. Played parts of 3 years in the majors with the Cubs and the Royals. Has like 30 career major league home runs, but also has a 28% career strikeout rate, and hasn't been able in the last year has been released. Played in Mexico. Is a scrap heap guy. I thought my ceiling for, and it's very low for Nelson Velasquez and the Cardinals, is Jeremy Hazelbaker. I think if he
Ooh.
could be Jeremy Hazelbaker, then we'd have something here. But he better not be the guy that Bloom's been telling us they're going to get to be the veteran right-handed hitting outfielder. Or no, he better not be.
Yeah, if that's the case, and we're back in the Mo days, right? Like, oh, we found our guy.
I'm
As
not going
Ashley,
to use the words low-hanging fruit, but I just did.
yeah. Well, he brought it upon himself by signing Nelson Velazquez, whose name I did not. I'm in a moment kind of like Yoho Pozo. Remember when they brought Yoho Pozo in? I was like, I don't know anything about. He's 32 years old. I don't know anything about this guy. And of course, that opened up the door for him to have this really heartwarming story that was
And his
a
friends
touch.
call him
Yeah, Joel.
Johel. Yeah, yeah.
Joel.
But I'm not one of his friends, so I just call him Mr. Pozo. But by
Yeah.
the way, I met him on the backfields last spring because he wasn't even an invite to Major League Camp last year. He was on the backfields. Very engaging guy. Good with the young players. I still don't know if the Cardinals are going to carry three catchers this year. I hope not. Nothing against the catchers, but they need to have somebody on the bench who can hit in late innings. But we'll have to see about that.
Four catchers, Brian. Pozo, Herrera, Pajes, and Crooks. Let's make it
Oops,
happen.
oops. I forgot about that. Yeah, we're gonna and obviously he's going to be watched very, very closely, Ivan Herrera, this spring as to how he's looking behind the plate, and is that going to be real, or is Jimmy Crooks going to have to go back to Memphis for a while longer?
Brian, as I've kind of hijacked this conversation and taken it into the weirdest direction, what are some of your impressions of the 15 list, the 15 player non roster invitee list? Was there anybody in there that kind of took you by surprise?
No, well, I think. Let me think about that for a minute. Who was I surprised to see?
It was I just one more thing while you kind of peruse the list. It was interesting to see Austin Love in there, and that
Yeah, I think
the,
that might have been the biggest. Ramon Mendoza, maybe Brody
yeah,
Moore. It's the
yeah.
infielders. And again, if you're a middle infielder in the St. Louis Cardinals organization, you got to be concerned just by the sheer numbers. But Ramon Mendoza, Brody Moore, Jeremy Rivas, all in camp. All of them have absolutely zero chance of making the major league roster. But hey, they're there.
Brian, do you think that? And okay, so we knew that Liam Doyle wasn't going to be a part of it, of course, but like I think that with some fans, they might have been surprised that some of the players weren't on there. Do you think that the story more of the 15 players who were selected to join camp as non-roster invitees are the players that aren't on the list?
Oh yeah, I mean, let's face it, a guy that we've talked about for many, many years, Ian Bedell, who is former Mizzou product, a guy that folks had a lot of hopes for, had a down year last year in AAA, but he was in the rotation. Ian Bedell was not invited to big league camp. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah, me too. That was honestly like it's a lot of those older arms. I was surprised to see Rajic there and Bedell not there. I wonder about
Alex
Bedell's health.
Cornwell didn't get an invite this year after going last year.
Yeah, the pride of USC. Mr. Flores is alma mater. Normally, the USC's guys get the like the extra cap tip. Yeah, especially with all the left-handed options and the concern about left-handed bullpen. So yeah, I'm with you.
One guy I'm not surprised about is Edwin Nunez, who had great potential because he threw the ball really hard. It's just he still hasn't figured out how to throw strikes, and so that one's not a big surprise.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a fun list. It's an interesting list, and candidly, I hope that Ramon Mendoza does get a chance. I hope he seizes an opportunity to just become like on the periphery of a 40-man spot. Because
I think Ramon Mendoza could be Memphis' third baseman this year.
ooh, that's a great call, Brian. Great call.
And another guy that we don't ever talk about, and we didn't put him on our prospect list, and we're probably stupid for not doing it because he's 27, going on 28, and that's Brian Torres. Brian
Yeah.
Torres can play the outfield. He can play second base. He can hit 300 at every level. Doesn't have any power, but so what? A lot of infielders don't have power. As an outfielder, you know, a little more challenging, perhaps. But Brian Torres, a guy who fought his way onto the roster, and probably deserved more attention than we've given him, Kyle.
Yeah, you're right, 100%. And he's probably another prospect that we put a should that I should have wrote about and put in the handbook. And I'll look we won't look bad, but it would be nice to have it. But yeah, look, he's put himself in a great position, and he does a lot of the things that the Cardinals like, which are make smart swing decisions and make a ton of contact. And that's actually, and he's really fast and he's a good bunter. And these are things that might play well in a utility role as your 13th position player on a roster.
I'd sure as heck rather see that than another catcher.
Oh, well, you be careful, Brian. How dare you? We're trying to
I'm,
build
I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
we're trying to
Now,
build a roster full of catchers. Maybe
well,
you
the
can
reality
catch.
is, of course, we don't have any control over it, but we're going to complain no matter what because that's our right.
You know what? I heard Brian Torres is a great catcher. So no.
Yeah, and he probably will be the emergency catcher because guys like that, do that. It's certainly not going to be Blaze Jordan, I don't think.
Oh boy. Oh boy. No, you're right, Brian.
So, Kyle, we are about at the end of our time for another week. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to cover this time around?
No, no. I think that Brian, I think we really got into it. I just think that boy, camp is just right around the corner. Are we 2 weeks away? We're 2 weeks away, a little over 2 weeks away from camp.
Mhm.
I'm excited to get into the season, to talk it over during the season about all this. And I would imagine in the next 2 weeks there'll be a lot of announcements and some more
Or a
things here
lot
and
of
there.
non-announcements.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, Hein Bloom, by the way, it's hard to not have at least a few minutes to talk about the biggest question all winter long, and that's, is Brendan Donovan here or is he gone? And
yeah,
Bloom finally did, I guess, on KMOX on Sunday, did say, hey, I'd like to get it resolved before camp. I asked him the same question in winter warm-up, and he hedged. But this time, maybe he got pinned down directly and said what needed to be said, in my opinion. That is, hey, at some point in time, you got to stop the talk and get focused on baseball this year. And Brendan Donovan doesn't know where he's going to play next year. His family doesn't know where they're going to live. And yeah, maybe that shouldn't matter, but it does. They're people.
yeah, yeah. And I hope so too, Brian. You've been on this since before winter warm up. I remember maybe 2 weeks before winter warm up, you were saying, let's get some finality. Let's set a date. And maybe not. You didn't say let's set a date. That's an unfair characteristic of what you said, but you characterize it this way. Let's get to spring training and call an end to it at that point. So hopefully by the time we get there, there is an end to it. And I know that's tough for fans to hear, but again, like that's just my personal belief. If they get into spring training and they're deep midway through spring and they don't have a trade partner for them, just run them into the season and let's let what is really the team's captain at this point be the team's captain.
And at this point in time, and maybe it's going to happen, maybe Mason Wynn will become the face of the franchise. Maybe JJ Weatherholt will become the face of the franchise. But the reality is right now they're not. They haven't earned that yet. Brendan Donovan's earned that. Like it or not, he's the leader of the Cardinals as it's constructed today now that all the veterans are gone. And I just think, as much as you want to clean the decks and bring in as many prospects as you can, and listen, if they traded Donovan today for 3 national top 100 prospects, I'd be the first one to say, great move, Heim. But, if they trade him for another Richard Fitz, I'm not so sure. And nothing against Mr. Fitz, who we're going to count on to be probably at the back end of the rotation, but you get what I mean. You got to get quality. And nobody right now is desperate enough to pay what Bloom wants. And they may not. Now, maybe Ketel Marte or somebody else is going to get injured the first week of spring training. And maybe they'll change their mind. But okay, then the assumptions change. Right now, the assumptions are what they are. And that is they've been trying for months to make a trade and they haven't got it done.
That's it. Well said, Brian. Yeah, and eventually you got to wonder if maybe I love Brendan Donovan, and I don't know how to be unbiased here, Brian. So I would just say that I almost wish I could spring training and extend him at that point. Like
Well, that's another possibility too. We don't know what the appetite of the front office is right now to take on, greater commitments. We don't know, but he's the guy, at least in the old regime, that you'd say, hey, he's a cornerstone guy. We want to keep him around. Now, that's what we thought about Tommy Edman at one point either, and we know he's wearing Dodger blue. So, who knows?
yeah, teach their own, I guess. We'll
But
see how it goes.
the point on Donovan is, if you don't trade him now, that doesn't mean you can't trade him in the deadline like they did Helsley or Stephen Matz. Right? It's not like the end of the world. It's just about, hey, it's time to get serious about the 2026 team, and that matters too.
Yeah. or the rare in-season non-deadline trade that sent Marcus Semien to the Milwaukee Brewers. Like that, there's always a chance that something like that comes up where a team gets desperate and sees something and are like, all right, now we're ready to make that
And
move.
nobody's ever going to say never.
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to say not now. I mean, not
Yeah.
yet, not right now, not on the 28th of January, but soon. Soon,
Yeah.
by the 8th, let's say,
Yeah.
when
Step
guys
back.
start showing up in Jupiter and need to get to work.
That's right. That's right. And then, take a step back and look at your roster and realize your team's better off in both the clubhouse and on the field for having him than for trading him. So,
There's all kinds of balancers, there's all kinds of levers. I mean, I think anybody would say if the offseason ended right now with the exception of Nelson Velazquez's replacement as the right-handed hitting outfield reserve, that the Cardinals have done the heavy lifting, right? They've done the guys that are gone that they wanted to have gone to save money and to get some prospects are all gone. Brendan Donovan was never a have to do. It was a let's see, let's throw the line out and see what bites.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I almost wonder if people, the fans, and maybe we'll get some feedback on the message board or whatnot, but like, I wonder if fans would be more shocked or upset even if they didn't trade Jojo Romero as compared to Brendan Donovan when it's all said and done.
Yeah, it's funny it's been quiet. It's been very, very quiet about. There haven't been any rumors about Romero lately. And again, JoJo's had his ups and downs. He was very strong last year, but he's the type of guy that could maybe regress as well. I wouldn't pay a king's ransom for him. I'm glad he's here, but I'm hoping somebody else earns a closer job. Frankly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, run that Mr. O'Brien, that Riley O'Brien, who I always want to call Peter. I almost did it a second ago again, Brian. But yeah, there's plenty of options, and I think it's all better for the Cardinals if they are running out and not JoJo.
All right, so there you have it. This edition of Wednesday with Walton and Reis is now coming to a close. Make sure you buy our stuff. Take a look at the prospect guide. You'll see another picture of it here coming up soon because I want to make sure you see the cover. I can't show you the inside yet because the book's still at the printer, but trust me, it's going to be cool. And subscribe to the site as well because we have a lot of good content about the St. Louis Cardinals year round at the Cardinal Nation. Thanks for listening and watching this week, and thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure.
Until next week, folks.